Look at your own hands for a moment, then imagine every tiny cell quietly carrying echoes from people who lived thousands of years before you. For centuries, families across India's western coast preserved traditions, prayers, and memories, believing their ancestors arrived from a distant homeland after unimaginable hardship. Many neighbors accepted those stories with respect, while others dismissed them as legends shaped by faith, migration, and generations of oral tradition alone. If you have ever wondered where your own family truly began, you already understand why this mystery captured scientists for decades. The question was never simply whether these communities were Jewish, but whether their history could still be traced inside living human DNA. Old records offered fragments, ancient travelers described unfamiliar customs, and local traditions survived, yet none could answer every lingering historical question completely. Then, modern genetics entered a debate that historians, archaeologists, and community elders had carefully discussed for generations without reaching complete agreement together. Instead of confirming every expectation, the earliest DNA studies revealed patterns that surprised even experienced researchers studying human migrations across Asia. Some genetic clues seemed remarkably consistent with ancient Jewish ancestry, while others reflected centuries of life among surrounding Indian populations and cultures. That unexpected mixture raised an even deeper question nobody could ignore if history and biology were both telling parts of the same story. Imagine standing beside India's western shoreline nearly 2,000 years ago, watching unfamiliar ships appear beyond the waves after an uncertain voyage. Who stepped onto those beaches? What memories did they carry? And how much of their identity survived the passing centuries afterward? Historical documents remained incomplete, archaeological discoveries were limited, and many important events disappeared long before anyone thought to record them carefully. Scientists realized the strongest evidence might not be hidden inside forgotten manuscripts, ruined settlements, or weathered monuments, but within living descendants themselves. Every DNA sample became more than scientific data. It represented a family's history, personal identity, and centuries of carefully protected cultural memory. Researchers move cautiously because genetic evidence can reveal connections, yet it cannot replace traditions, beliefs, or every chapter history failed to preserve. As the evidence slowly grew stronger, the mystery became larger than one community, touching the broader story of human migration across continents. The investigation was no longer about proving a legend right or wrong, but understanding how history leaves traces inside ordinary people today. What scientists eventually uncovered challenged long-held assumptions and opened a remarkable chapter that begins far earlier than anyone first imagined. Long before genetic laboratories existed, India's western coastline welcomed merchants, sailors, refugees, and travelers carried across the Arabian Sea by seasonal monsoon winds. Ancient ports connected India with Arabia, East Africa, Persia, and the Eastern Mediterranean, creating busy trading networks that lasted for many centuries. Among those distant travelers, later Jewish traditions describe small groups escaping conflict, persecution, or political upheaval before reaching India's peaceful coastal settlements. One enduring tradition tells of survivors whose ship was destroyed near the Konkan coast, leaving only a handful alive to rebuild their lives. Although historians cannot verify every detail, this story remained central within the Bene Israel community for generations across western India. Instead of building isolated colonies, these families gradually adapted to local languages, clothing, occupations, and customs while carefully protecting important religious traditions. Villages surrounded by coconut trees, fishing boats, and fertile farmland became home, while ancient prayers quietly continued inside modest family gatherings and celebrations. Over countless generations, Hebrew words slowly mixed with local languages, reflecting everyday life without completely erasing memories of distant ancestral origins. Travelers visiting Western India occasionally noticed unusual customs, including Sabbath observance, dietary practices, and traditions unlike surrounding communities during earlier centuries. These observations appeared within scattered historical writings, yet none provided enough evidence to explain exactly when these communities first reached India. Meanwhile, another Jewish community flourished farther south along Kerala's Malabar coast, where historical records describe centuries of active international trade connections. Copper plate inscriptions and local traditions suggest Jewish merchants received privileges from regional rulers, although scholars continue debating precise historical dates today. Unlike legends passed through families, archaeological evidence often survives only in fragments, leaving historians carefully comparing documents, artifacts, inscriptions, and oral traditions together. Each discovery answered one question while creating another, revealing how easily important chapters disappear when history depends upon incomplete surviving records alone. Researchers eventually realized migration rarely follows simple paths because communities constantly adapt, marry locally, exchange cultures, and reshape identities through ordinary daily life. That reality made tracing ancient ancestry far more difficult than following names, languages, or religious traditions preserved across generations by themselves. Historical evidence suggested genuine ancient connections, Yet no document alone could confidently identify the biological origins behind these remarkable surviving communities today. The deeper historians searched through manuscripts and archaeological discoveries, the clearer one truth became: only science might finally uncover the missing chapters. As genetic technology improved, researchers finally gained tools capable of examining ancestry beyond family stories, historical records, or cultural traditions alone. Instead of searching ancient ruins, scientists collected voluntary DNA samples from living community members, while carefully respecting privacy, ethics, and personal identity. Every participant represented more than scientific information, because each genetic sample reflected generations of family history carried through ordinary human lives. Researchers compared these DNA patterns with populations across India, the Middle East, Europe, and neighboring regions using internationally accepted genetic methods. The goal was never proving religious identity, because DNA cannot measure faith, beliefs, language, or personal commitment to cultural traditions. Instead, scientists searched for inherited genetic markers commonly shared among populations, connected through ancient ancestry over many generations before modern history. Several independent studies found that many Bene Israel individuals carried genetic signatures linking part of their ancestry to Middle Eastern Jewish populations. At the same time, those same studies also revealed substantial genetic contributions from local Indian communities developed through centuries of shared everyday life. The combination matched what historians expected from a small migrant community gradually becoming part of Indian society without completely losing ancestral roots. Researchers emphasized these findings supported historical traditions without confirming every detail preserved through oral stories passed between generations. Modern DNA simply cannot identify the exact ship, exact family, or precise year when ancient ancestors first reached India's western coastline. Scientists also compared maternal and paternal genetic markers because each follows different inheritance patterns through thousands of years of human history. Some paternal lineages showed stronger Middle Eastern connections, while maternal ancestry reflected greater integration with surrounding Indian populations over time. This pattern suggested that migration probably happened through real families whose descendants gradually married into nearby communities across many centuries. Importantly, researchers warned against oversimplified conclusions, because human populations rarely remain completely isolated anywhere throughout recorded history. Genetics provides powerful evidence, yet it always works alongside archaeology, written history, linguistics, and carefully preserved cultural traditions to reconstruct the past. The greatest discovery was not finding perfectly unchanged ancestry, but revealing how migration and adaptation shaped one remarkable community across two continents. Instead of ending the debate completely, these scientific discoveries inspired one final question about what this shared history truly means for humanity today. The greatest lesson from this investigation is surprisingly simple, because history often survives inside people long after written records completely disappear. For generations, community elders protected family traditions without laboratories, advanced technology, or scientific language, relying only upon memory and shared identity. Modern genetics did not replace those traditions, but instead added another independent source of evidence supporting parts of their remarkable historical journey. Researchers emphasize that no DNA test can determine someone's faith, personal beliefs, cultural identity, or lifelong connection to any religious community. Instead, genetics helps explain where populations may have originated, while culture explains how those people chose to preserve their traditions through time. This distinction matters because human identity is always shaped by ancestry, family experiences, language, beliefs, and countless personal decisions together. The Bene Israel story reflects something deeply familiar throughout human history, because migration has always shaped civilizations across every inhabited continent. Families leave home searching for safety, opportunity, survival, or peace, carrying memories that often outlive the journeys themselves across many generations. Some traditions slowly disappear, others adapt naturally, and a few survive almost unchanged despite centuries of political, cultural, and geographical transformation. That remarkable balance between adaptation and preservation is exactly what scientists observed while studying this unique Indian Jewish community today. The findings also remind historians that ancient migrations rarely followed perfectly straight paths or produced completely isolated populations anywhere worldwide. Instead, communities constantly interacted with neighbors, exchanged knowledge, married locally, and created entirely new chapters within human history together. Every new scientific discovery strengthens our understanding, while also revealing how much remains unknown about humanity's ancient shared past today. Future archaeological discoveries, historical documents, and improved genetic research may answer questions that still remain beyond today's available scientific evidence. That uncertainty is not a weakness, because real science continues asking better questions instead of claiming every mystery has already been solved. Looking across India's western coastline today, the landscape appears peaceful, Yet its shores quietly witnessed journeys that changed countless family histories forever. Those forgotten footsteps may have faded from the sand centuries ago, but traces of those lives continue within living generations, even now. Perhaps the greatest mystery was never whether these people belonged somewhere, but how human history connects all of us across unimaginable distances. If this journey changed how you see history, subscribe for more documentaries uncovering the remarkable scientific stories quietly hidden within our shared human past.